Imagine a world where you can buy any new car that you want from the comfort of your own home. You can arrange financing online, set up the delivery, and have the car delivered to your own home. No need to deal with slimy salesmen, shady dealership tactics, and best of all, you don't have to spend your entire day at a dealership. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Well, for Florida, that dream is dead, because Florida just screwed over car buyers. This dream of buying a car from the comfort of your own home without having to deal with dealerships or car salesmen is the direct-to-consumer model. This is the idea that instead of buying a car with a car salesman through a franchise dealership, you can instead buy one online directly from the manufacturer. And there are a lot of selling points to this. Transparent pricing, convenience, oftentimes it's more timely, and of course, you don't have to go to a dealership, which is a huge selling point. Tesla really made the direct-to-consumer model mainstream, at least in the context of the automotive industry. And other electric vehicle startups like Rivian and Lucid have been following suit, while other larger legacy brands have been attempting to go to direct-to-consumer with some unique strategies. You see, franchise law here in the United States has made it really difficult for legacy automakers to do direct-to-consumer because of the fact that these automakers are already utilizing franchise dealerships. And franchise law currently dictates, at least in most states, that automakers can't sell cars directly to consumers, and thus they have to utilize the franchise dealership model, which is why franchise dealerships exist in the first place. But over the last few years, the discussions surrounding the direct-to-consumer model have been ramping up, with traditional sales models being considered antiquated, costly, and the less desirable method for modern-day car buyers. So there has been a lot of discussions on how legacy automakers can begin selling direct-to-consumer while not breaking the law. And this week, Florida made this a whole lot more difficult. This week, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis ratified a bill that would protect the legacy auto dealership model from offering direct-to-consumer sales. So what this means is that brands that currently do have dealership, legacy automakers like Ford, GM, Toyota, and more, they are officially banned from offering direct-to-consumer sales, while brands that do not have franchise dealerships, so Tesla, Lucid, Rivian, they are allowed to sell direct-to-consumer in the state of Florida. In response to this bill being passed, the Alliance for Automakers Innovation, a group out of DC, stated that they believe that this will cement unequal regulatory systems. And in addition to banning direct-to-consumer sales, this bill will also require automakers to pay dealerships at least 8% of any post-purchase electronic vehicle upgrades or activation. So this would be things like over-the-air upgrades or in-vehicle subscription models. This bill would also prohibit automakers from setting prices or limiting vehicle allocation to dealerships. So basically, automakers will be forced to allocate vehicles equally across franchise dealerships throughout the state. And so what this bill really does is it takes away a lot of the control from the manufacturer and puts a lot of control into the hand of the dealership. And the bad news is this bill goes into effect very, very soon, on July 1st, 2023. And truthfully, not only is this bill anti-consumer, but to the point of the Alliance of Automotive Innovation, it really does set some unequal regulatory requirements across the automotive industry. Because under this bill, some automakers are going to be required to conduct a more expensive business model that is quickly becoming outdated, while another separate group of automakers don't have to take part in that same business model at all, simply because they never have. The dealership model is outdated, it's more expensive, and it's proving to hurt brand loyalty. And so automakers are going to be forced to take part in a more expensive, outdated business model that could in some ways be causing more harm than good. It's something that not only automakers don't want, but consumers don't want it either. And this is all simply because of the fact that this is a business model that automakers have previously offered, and thus they must continue offering it. And the thing is, Florida actually isn't the only state that has some pretty extreme laws regarding automakers' ability to sell direct to consumer. Alabama, Arkansas, Connecticut, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Montana, New Mexico, North Dakota, South Carolina, South Dakota, Texas, West Virginia, Wisconsin, as well as a few other states do not allow direct sales at all, because they don't allow automakers to compete with their own franchise dealerships. While other states like Tennessee, Rhode Island, Oregon, Pennsylvania, and Ohio allow direct sales as long as the franchise dealership doesn't offer the same line of vehicles. And this is where something like exclusively offering electric vehicles via direct-to-consumer sales comes into play. And there are some other states like Georgia, for example, that do allow direct sales, but only for electric cars. And so when it comes to automakers' ability to sell direct to consumer, the laws are quite all over the place state to state. And the thing that makes this entire scenario even more strange is that this isn't a franchise-specific law, because quite honestly, this is more of an automotive-focused law. I've mentioned a number of times throughout the years on my channel that I have a part-time consulting job in corporate America. And that part-time consulting job is actually in the franchise industry, so I am uniquely qualified to talk about this. But there is no FTC regulation prohibiting franchisors from owning their own locations of their brand. For example, if you have a burger chain that you decided to start franchising and you have 10 franchisees opening up franchise locations of your burger restaurant, and you yourself, the franchisor, want to begin opening up your own corporate locations, you can continue doing that to your heart's desire. There is no regulation banning franchisors from opening up their own locations. But what is required is that these corporately owned locations that would be owned by the franchisor have to adhere to the regulation outlined in the FDD or franchise disclosure document. And there are a slew of rules that a franchisor must follow. For example, there are specific regulations to how far apart certain franchise locations can be from one another. And if a franchisor wanted to open up their own corporately owned location, it would have to adhere to that distance regulation. But as long as they did that and they made sure that they were adhering to the franchise agreement and the FDD, there is no laws prohibiting a franchisor from opening up their own corporately owned locations. And in some ways, opening up your own locations whenever you have a franchisee nearby, which is not illegal, is still technically competing with your own franchisees. And so truthfully, I don't really understand where this anti-competition justification comes from with the automotive industry specifically. Because when it comes to the franchising industry, this type of stuff isn't frowned upon or illegal in any way. So it's just strange. And I certainly think that this is not only hurting automakers, but it's also hurting consumers, and in many ways, I feel as though this is a bit of a government overreach. But interestingly enough, this actually isn't the only automotive industry bill that's up for discussion this year. There are a few others. Virginia is looking to prohibit automakers from negotiating the sale or lease terms directly with consumers, retaining ownership of new vehicles until they're sold, and unilaterally changing franchise agreements without the consent from the dealers. West Virginia also wants to prohibit automakers from unilaterally changing franchise agreement without the consent from the dealers. New Jersey wants to prohibit dealers and automakers from offering subscription services or charging a post-purchase fee for any vehicle feature that uses parts or hardware already installed. Now, that's a bill that I can absolutely get behind. Mississippi wants to prevent vehicle manufacturers from owning, operating, or controlling dealerships, while Texas and California have some warranty-related legislation on the table. In many ways, these pieces of legislation sort of retain the status quo. They make sure that the automotive industry doesn't change, whether it be for the better or for the worse. And so truthfully, I think that if these bills do pass, we probably won't notice a whole lot of difference on the consumer level. But I do think it will be quite impactful to the automotive industry as a whole and where this industry is heading long term. Because in many ways, I believe that the automotive industry is at a bit of a pivot. The industry is changing, and for the last year or two, EVs have had a clear path to limit dealership involvement in the car buying process, which for a lot of people is a welcome change. But if this Florida bill ends up gaining traction in other states, that may not be the case. Because unfortunately, at least in the state of Florida, it looks as though dealerships aren't going anywhere anytime soon, if ever. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.